He still doesn't know where I left the key. The valet didn't check my name because he knew the car. Midnight gray coupe, custom plates, the one my husband insisted looked like leadership. The museum's glass atrium threw back 100 versions of me as I walked in, emerald dress, hair pinned, expression neutral. I was Mrs. Adrian Cole, spouse of the man being toasted tonight as the architect of Northline Capital's meteoric rise. Co-architect, though you wouldn't hear that word from the stage. The rooftop terrace glittered under strings of warm light. The mayor was there. The bank chair. A tech founder I'd coached through his first acquisition even though my name wouldn't appear on any advisory paperwork. Laughter skated across the night like expensive perfume. A jazz trio played the kind of music you pretend you don't notice. I adjusted the bracelet Adrian chose, the one he said made me look effortlessly composed. He kissed my hair when he gave it to me, his new habit, like patting a child. It had felt like a goodbye dressed as tenderness. I'd ignored that. You made it. Tessa from events touched my elbow, eyes darting. Adrian's about to speak. There it was again, the flinch people did around me tonight. Conversations thinning out when I approached, then blooming back once I passed. I am not a paranoid person. I am a former analyst who reads patterns for sport. The pattern was loud. Near the bar, I caught the back half of a sentence, soft but deliberate, poor thing, everyone knows but her. A chorus of sympathetic murmurs. I didn't turn. I watched the skyline instead. The city looked like a lie you could almost believe if you squinted. Adrian took the stage bathed in gold light. Perfect suit. Silvering hair. The posture of a man who hasn't apologized in a while. We built this together, he said, and I nearly laughed. He thanked investors by name, praised his executive team, and raised a glass to the woman who makes it all possible, a general shape where a person should be. I stepped closer, waiting for him to include me like he used to. He saw me. Something flashed across his face, annoyance, quickly filed as charm. He didn't call my name. The applause rolled over my ribs like a wheel. When the clapping faded, a woman in a bare-shouldered black dress slid into my eyeline. Nora, she said. You look composed. Quinn, I said, because I still believe in calling a thing by its name. Quinn Avery. New Director of Strategic Relations, 28, resume like a mood board, ambition like electricity. I'd chosen her, technically. I'd approved the position because the firm needed a liaison who could speak both finance and PR fluently. I didn't realize I was also approving the woman who'd practice whispering in my husband's ear. Security's tightening, guest list getting strict, she said lightly, like banter. We just want stakeholders feeling prioritized tonight. I am a stakeholder, I said. The words surprised me with their texture, flat, heavy, factual. Her smile sharpened. Sweetheart. 2 security staff appeared at her drift. The same men who waved me through at quarterly meetings. The ones who carried extra umbrellas to my car in rainstorms. Now their faces were professional and blank. I'm going to stop you there, I said, because I know how these scenes look from the outside. No theatrics. Walk me to the elevator. Smile like you're telling a joke. Quinn blinked. I held her gaze until she swallowed and pasted on something bright. We crossed the terrace like old friends discussing vacation plans. People watched without watching. That's how polite circles punish, hands clean, eyes full. Inside the elevator, I said, almost conversational, what's your plan if he doesn't leave her for you? She flinched, then recovered. He already has. Has he? I said, and pressed the lobby button. By the time the doors opened, the part of me that cared about being understood had shrunk to a grain of salt. A different part, ancient, practical, took over. The part that knows where the documents live, which levers move systems, which numbers make a man sweat. I didn't cry in the car. I drove the way you carry a full glass across a crowded room. No spills, no sudden movements. At the first red light, I thumbed open my banking app. 9 joint accounts. 6 I'd created. 3 he'd opened for convenience. I tapped the freeze toggles one by one, pull steady. Adrian called. I watched the screen light my lap, Adrian Cole. The photo was last winter, him laughing at a joke I can't remember anymore. I let it ring out. He called again, then again. The 4th time, I answered. Where did you go? He said, voice pitched low, the performance tone. You're being dramatic. Don't speak to me like a donor in a crisis, I said. Speak to me like the person who paid for your first 2 analysts when Northline had 3 desks and a borrowed plant. Nora, please. Can you come back? Quinn. Don't say her name to me, I said, and hung up. At home, I turned on no lights. The house holds your choices, all of them. It's loud when you're alone. I went to the office, unlocked the credenza, and set out files like instruments. People think betrayal is fireworks. It's really a spreadsheet. The incorporation binder. The convertible notes I'd signed when a bridge round needed patching. The personal line of credit I'd taken to cover payroll during a down quarter so he wouldn't have to notify investors. 12.8% ownership on paper, 14.2 million at current valuation. I photographed everything. I liked the sound the phone made with each click, a metronome for my pulse. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You left a small box on the museum steps. Looks valuable. Concierge can hold it. I pictured the velvet case in my clutch, the gift I'd planned for Adrian's speech. A slim gold band engraved with the GPS coordinates of the diner where we'd split one slice of pie and decided to bet on each other. I imagined it lying on stone like a shed skin. Keep it, I typed. Or give it to someone who still believes promises. Another call. Not Adrian. Harper Lynn, our attorney, and my oldest friend who still liked me on purpose. Nora? Are you okay? Her voice was clear and quiet, the tone she uses with clients who might set their own hair on fire. I need a separation agreement drafted by morning, I said. And I need a letter of intent prepared for the sale of my stake in Northline. I'll send the figures in 10. Silence, then, I'll clear my night. I also need you to send a preservation notice to Northline's board. All communications. All devices. If anything gets wiped, we treat it as spoliation. That escalates fast. So will the gossip if I let them tell it, I said. After we hung up, I called the brokerage. Then the travel agent, canceling the anniversary trip Adrian planned without asking what week my mother's surgery is. The agent apologized about fees. I told her to charge me twice if she needed satisfaction. When the paperwork was queued and the accounts frozen, I went upstairs, opened the cedar box under our bed, and took out a small silver key. I'd kept it since the year we couldn't afford a safe deposit box and needed somewhere to hide our tax refund from our own temptation. The key belonged to an old P.O. box on the edge of town that I'd never surrendered because forgetting felt like breaking a superstition. I dropped the key into my purse. I didn't know yet what I'd put there for safekeeping. I only knew that doors have many uses, and sometimes the only way to leave a room with dignity is to build another exit. By midnight, I was back in the car, a stack of signed letters on the passenger seat. The road was empty. The phone lit the dark with missed calls, 12, then 19, then 24. I didn't answer any of them. At a red light on Mercer and Fifth, I looked at my reflection in the glass of a sleeping storefront. I looked exactly like myself. That surprised me. At home again, I put the letters by the door for courier pickup, poured water, and finally let my hands shake. It passed. I set my alarm for 5:30. Markets open at 9:30. Somewhere before that, I'd decide whether to scorch the field or simply take my harvest and go. Either way, by tomorrow night, Adrian wouldn't be the only one writing our story. By 9:17 a.m., the rumor mill was sprinting faster than the market. I was in the cafe across from Northline, the one with the fogged windows and the barista who never spells names wrong, watching the stock ticker crawl on the mounted TV. Northline dipped, recovered, dipped deeper. My email to the board had gone out at 7:02 a.m. with 3 attachments, my separation counsel's letter, a notice of intent to sell, and a litigation hold. The 4th attachment, screenshots of line of credit guarantees signed by me and witnessed by Adrian, was the quiet fuse I didn't announce. Fuses only work if you let them burn. Harper texted, preservation letter served. Your LOI is already attracting inbound interest. Also, please eat something. I took a bite of toast that tasted like paper and pulled up my calendar. 10 o'clock, call with Elara Partners. 10:30, brokerage confirmation. 11:15, courier pickups finalized. My life had become a series of levers and timestamps, and I felt better than I had in a year. Across the street, Northline's revolving door spun like a nervous tick. Quinn stepped out in a trench coat too light for November, a phone at her ear, her other hand wrapped tight around a leather portfolio. She scanned the sidewalk like she was searching for an exit that didn't exist yet. I wondered if she'd slept. I wondered if Adrian had. My phone lit, unknown. I let it ring. It stopped, then started again with a different number. Voicemail landed, Nora, it's James. Please call me. The CFO sounding like someone who'd discovered he was standing on a trapdoor. At 9:26, Elara Partners called in, 2 voices, smooth and careful. We're interested in your position, Ms. Cole, the first said. We see potential downside protection with the right PR reset and leadership realignment. You mean if the board amputates the gangrene, I said. A beat. Then the second voice, we're prepared to move fast. Clean cash. No covenants you'll hate later. I want an assurance, I said. No recap structured to drown out smaller employees' equity. If the ship gets saved, the analysts who sleep under their desks and the assistants who book your last-minute flights should benefit, not just the deck chairs. Another beat, longer this time. We can work that language. Send paper by noon, I said, and ended the call. Adrian's name flashed across my screen again. I answered this time, not out of softness, but strategy. You're trying to tank me, he said, skipping hello. You're hurting people who didn't do anything to you. I'm protecting the people who did everything for you, I said. Where should I start? The ops team you forgot in your speech? The analyst you screamed at for flagging the exact risk you ignored last quarter? Or the assistant you promoted for whispering instead of telling you the truth? This isn't you, he said, which told me he didn't know me anymore, maybe hadn't for a very long time. Come in. We'll fix this together. Did you tell security to escort me out last night? I asked. Silence. I could hear his breath, the conference room HVAC, the muffled voices of men who thought speakerphone made them gods. I needed to keep the room calm, he said finally. You were composed, I said. The word you and your girlfriend like. He flinched into silence. Then, softly, as if the building's walls could hear and vote, Nora, please. Don't sell to sharks. Then be the man who doesn't bleed, I said, and hung up. At 10:10, the broker confirmed allocation windows. At 10:27, Alara's term sheet hit my inbox, redlined already by Harper on a parallel thread. At 10:40, I walked across the street with a folder and a face no one would read correctly. The security guard in the lobby, Luis, who once told me about his daughter's college acceptance, stood a little taller when he saw me. Ms. Cole, he said, careful. Respect has a way of surviving even humiliations. I nodded and took the elevator to 27, an open plan of glass and ambition that used to thrill me. They were waiting, James, gray at the temples, Patricia from legal, looking like she could taste the email I'd sent, two directors trying to sit small. Adrian stood at the windows, tie loose, the skyline making him look like a portrait of power until you saw his hands. Thank you for coming, James said. We'd like to discuss a measured exit. I'm happy to discuss math, I said, setting my folder down and not sitting. Less happy to discuss narratives where my decision is emotional. No one spoke. Good. I slid a single page across the table. These are the lines I signed to keep you solvent in 2018 and 2020. They'll become public if anyone suggests my stake was ornamental. I'd prefer not to embarrass the firm. I spent too much time building it. Patricia skimmed the page and blanched. She knew the optics. She also knew the ethics. Second, I said, you have a culture problem. It wears lipstick and calls itself strategy. Fix it before it eats you. Quinn had slipped into the room quiet as silk, posted near the wall like she belonged. She didn't meet my eyes. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she just knew I'd force her to see herself. We can negotiate a buyback, James said quickly. Prevent a fire sale. You can't afford me, I said. Not in cash, not in terms. Adrian turned, finally. Nora, please. Stop saying please when you mean obey, I said. I took out a second sheet, Alara's offer with the employee protection language circled in blue. You can match these conditions and I'll entertain a hometown deal. Otherwise, my papers go through by end of day. James did the fast math on future dilution, debt stacks, headlines. He cleared his throat. We'll need the board. You'll need a spine, I said. I left them with their calculators and walked the long hallway lined with framed magazine covers, Adrian's chin, Adrian's handshake, Adrian's origin story that always began after I wrote the first check. At the end of the corridor, the photo from the firm's earliest days hung slightly crooked. 3 desks, a borrowed plant, and a whiteboard with a crooked curve up. I straightened the frame, a reflex older than rage. In the elevator down, my hands finally trembled. I could hold a war steady. I could also be a person. At the lobby, I turned toward the cafe again, and stopped. The atrium side door stood open to the service lane, and the sound of a voice I knew turned my head. Don't worry, Quinn was saying into her phone. Damage control is my specialty. By Monday, she'll look unhinged and we'll be the adults in the room. I stepped into the doorway. She didn't see me until she ended the call and spun. The distance between us smelled like cold air and spilled coffee. Try Monday, I said, calm as January. By Friday, HR will have 3 affidavits about your leak to the press last quarter. The phrases you used, quietly placing, exclusive tip, and from inside Northline, are so distinctive when you're excited. Her face strained. You can't. It's already written, I said. Harper filed the report with time-stamped emails at 9:41 a.m. today. I didn't want to use it. Then you put your hand on my elbow on a rooftop and told me who I were. She opened her mouth, closed it. He promised. He promises everyone something, I said. He promised me a life. He promised you a ladder. Make your own next time. I turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The person who told me about your leak. The assistant you bullied. She starts a new job Monday. Not here. Somewhere that sees her. We made sure of that. Outside, wind lifted the edges of my coat. The city smelled like winter coming for pretense. I checked my phone. Harper, board called emergency session, 1 p.m. Ilera ready. Also, look at this. A link. I tapped. A financial blog had published a piece 3 minutes prior, behind Northline's golden curtain, naming my co-founder status, outlining my loans, my equity, my decision to sell with employee protections. It was not my leak. It was the assistant's cousin's boyfriend's Substack, the one that never got anything right, until today. Some stories find their way out whether you open the door or not. At 12:03, Harper's final draft landed, settlement terms, asset inventory, communications plan that read like a scalpel. I signed with a hand that no longer shook. At 12:58, I stood outside the boardroom again, folder in hand. I could hear voices stacking on top of each other like bad Jenga. I thought about the silver key in my purse and the old P.O. box waiting in a post office that still smelled like dust and rubber bands. Doors have many uses. So do locks. They called me in. I walked through the doorway that had always felt taller than me and realized it wasn't. It was exactly my height. I closed the door behind me. The latch clicked. Somewhere down the hall, a clock began to chime 1. I didn't sit. Let's begin, I said. When the door clicked behind me, it felt like the sound of a gun being cocked. Everyone froze. Adrian sat at the head of the table, face pale, hair disheveled. The same man who once practiced his smiles in the mirror before investor meetings now looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Quinn wasn't there. I'd seen her walk out 20 minutes ago, probably realizing that she'd bet on a man who was losing his empire one document at a time. I placed my folder on the polished walnut table. Gentlemen, I began, my voice steady. You've all seen the headlines. I didn't authorize them, but I don't mind them. For once, they're accurate. Patricia from legal avoided my eyes. James, the CFO, shuffled his papers like a nervous schoolboy. A few others I didn't know as well, venture partners, board members, all looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Adrian stood. Nora, whatever you think you're doing, you're about to destroy everything we built. No, I said quietly. I'm about to remind you who built it. I slid 3 documents across the table, copies of the incorporation papers, the loan guarantees, and the early equity agreements with my initials next to his. These prove I'm not a bystander. I'm the foundation. You removed my name from your speeches, your interviews, even your website. But not from the law. Adrian's jaw clenched. You're angry, I get it. You're hurt. Don't you dare confuse anger with clarity, I cut in. Anger is what you feel when you're still invested. Clarity is what happens when you stop being fooled. The room was dead silent. You could hear the soft hum of the air conditioner and the faint buzz of phones silenced on the table. I pointed to the top sheet. My shares have already been transferred to Ilera Partners. The sale closes in 40 minutes. Their conditions are simple. They'll inject enough capital to stabilize Northline, on the condition that a leadership change takes place. Effective immediately. Adrian blinked. You're bluffing. Then call my bluff, I said. James looked at his phone, then at me. She's not bluffing, he said weakly. It's already hit the wire. Ilera's statement confirms it. The color drained from Adrian's face. You can't do this to me. I didn't do this to you, I said. You did. The night you let a junior staffer publicly humiliate your wife at your own event. The day you rewrote our history to make it just your story. The moment you stopped treating me as your partner and started treating me like furniture. His voice cracked. You don't understand what this means. I'll lose everything. You'll lose what you stole, I replied. Not everything, just the illusion. He looked around the room, searching for an ally. No one met his eyes. Even Patricia kept her gaze fixed on the table. It was over, and he knew it. Finally, he sat back down, shoulders caving in. So what do you want? I already have it, I said. Freedom, recognition, control over my narrative. James cleared his throat carefully. For the record, Ms. Cole, do you wish to make a formal statement regarding your departure? Yes. I looked directly at Adrian. I want the minutes to reflect that I didn't destroy Northline. I simply took my name back from the man who buried it. Patricia typed it word for word. I gathered my documents, slid them into my briefcase, and walked to the door. Halfway there, I stopped and turned. One more thing, I said. If you ever try to use my name, my likeness, or my story in another press release, I'll see you in court. And you already know how that ends. Adrian didn't respond. His hands trembled in his lap, the mighty architect reduced to a man who finally realized the building was made of glass. When I stepped into the hallway, I felt the tension lift from my chest for the first time in 20 years. The elevator ride down was silent, calm, almost peaceful. My reflection in the mirrored wall didn't look triumphant, it looked steady, whole. Outside, the city was alive, taxis honking, wind whipping through the glass towers we'd once dreamed of owning. My phone buzzed. Harper. It's done. Wire confirmed. You're liquid. I smiled faintly. Good, I texted back. Let's build something new. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of a converted warehouse on the east side of the city. The sign above the entrance read Arcadia Ventures. My firm. My name on the paperwork. My decisions on every wall. We funded women-led startups, small firms ignored by the men who thought mentorship was charity. In 6 months, 3 of our investments had already gone profitable. The industry blogs were calling us a quiet storm of capital and conscience. That afternoon, I hosted our first investor reception. Not a gala, no crystal chandeliers or empty speeches. Just a clean room, natural light, and people who believed in the work. Harper clinked her glass lightly. To Nora, she said, for proving that walking away can be the most powerful deal you ever make. Laughter, applause. I smiled, not because it felt triumphant, but because it felt real. Later, when the guests had gone, I stood by the window looking over the city. My phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar number, but I knew before I opened it. Adrian, I saw the article. Congratulations. You always were the smart one. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, thank you. And nothing more. I deleted the thread, turned off the phone, and went back to the conference table where a new business proposal waited, a young architect seeking seed funding for sustainable housing. Her plan reminded me of us once, hungry, idealistic, reckless with hope. Let's give her a chance, I said to Harper. When the meeting ended, I walked outside. The sky had shifted to that soft blue that means the day's about to fold. I reached into my purse, found the small silver key, and held it up to the light. The old P.O. box was still there, and inside, a single envelope with my name on it, untouched. I didn't need it anymore. I dropped the key into a street drain and watched it vanish beneath the grating. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just exhales. And for the first time in decades, so did I.